Hey for the Wild community, Ayana here. This week we are taking a break from our regularly scheduled programming to do a special encore episode swap with How to Survive the End of the World podcast. In this episode, host Adrienne Maree Brown and Autumn Brown introduce their brand new season that looks at all the facets of love. We hope you enjoy this week's episode, and we will be back next week with a new episode of For the Wild podcast.
What is love?
What is love? What is love?
Why does it hurt so bad? And why is it so necessary? I'm Autumn Brown, a wealthy socialite, moonlighting as a bike courier from the 1990s and real-world hopeful, living on Dakota and Anishinaabe land, currently known as Minneapolis.
And I'm Adrienne Maree Brown, a radical femme aspirational Lin-Manuel Miranda, student of miracles, love, emergent strategist, and pleasure activist, living in the land of the Shakori, Skarure, Tuscarora, and Lumbee people, known as Durham.
And this is How to Survive the End of the World,
our podcast about learning from apocalypse with grace, rigor, and curiosity. And this season, season six, is our all about love season. We are dedicating this season to our Black feminist new ancestor, Bell Hooks, the beloved one, and particularly her groundbreaking work, All About Love, New Visions. And we are going to dedicate an entire season to talking about love in this world right now and how it's deeply tied into why we want to survive, how we survive, and who we survive with.
Get ready for some new segments.
Oh, yes. We have to have new segments for this. So before we hop into new segments, Autumn, it's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without a check-in. What's going on, sister?
Well,
yeah, how are you?
I mean, you know how I'm doing.
I literally just left your presence.
You literally just left my house, my actual house that I live in now. I'm doing really well today. My big fun announcement to our listeners is that I bought a house and
a whole house.
And I am currently recording from my office on the third floor of my whole house. And it's a beautiful, beautiful space. And it is also the first true office that I've ever had. I've worked from home most of my adult life, but I've never had an office that wasn't also a bedroom or a living room or a kitchen or a corner of something else. So this is like a big upgrade for my life, that I have an actual space that has a door that closes, that's like on a different level of the house than where everything else takes place. But everything about this house is like very magical. Everything about the way that I came into ownership of this house is extremely magical and imbued with magic. And, you know, I have to say, like, when I went through my divorce, as you know, I was like, I'm never buying a house again. I was like, I'm never, you know, I just had all these feelings associated with like having to let go of a house that I, you know, thought I was going to like grow old and die in.
Yeah.
And so there's something that's been so really beautiful about making the life affirming choice to say, I'm going to buy this house because I plan to actually be here for at least the next decade of my life, and to feel really at home immediately in the space. And just, there's been a lot of joy already, a lot of big feelings already in the space, as you got to witness a couple of days ago. Like the kids are really enjoying the space. I'm really enjoying the space. And it really is like, I can already feel the ways that it's like making my life better.
Mm.
So I'm very happy. I'm very happy
it's
today.
Such a gorgeous home.
How are you today? You just got home.
I just got home from your beautiful home to my beautiful home. And I'm feeling really intact, like that I keep having this like, oh, I can really feel all the parts of myself in my house. And there's, for the first time ever, a lawn care person came today to completely take care of my lawn, garden area, like everything outside. And like with no, like he was just there. He just like, I looked out the window and I'm like, oh, you're just handling it. Like there was no like, let's pretend like you know anything and you need to tell me what to, like, it was like, it was just like, I can
He was
see.
like, you filled out the intake. So I'll just,
he's like, this is bad and I love it. And I'll take care of the land. So that's really great. My very dear friend, Jen Kidwell, who is an incredible artist of the theater, is visiting me with like, she showed up yesterday and she's like, I brought you peanut M&Ms. And I was like, that is so kind.
That is an act of love.
That's so loving. So she's here with me and yeah, it's spring. This is my first like spring in North Carolina. So it's like hot already. I'm like, it was like cold and then it's like 80 degrees. So that feels exciting to me. Like,
I mean, that's great for you. I was making that face on my own behalf.
I know that face. I was like, that face is from your cold house, but I am warm. And like, even wearing a sweatshirt inside the warmth, like I just love being warm. So those are all the ways.
You do love being warm.
I'm just a little toasty toast.
You were like so cute when you were here with your like, I need a electric blanket to go under me on the air mattress, Autumn. Like,
exactly. Yes, well, because the air was getting cold.
The air is cold. Exactly.
The air was getting cold.
And then the cold floor.
When the second night with the electric blanket under me and a hot water bottle next to me, like up under my pajamas, I was like, finally I can rest.
Now
like,
you're comfortable.
Parts of me are kind of sweaty. This is good. So yeah, I'm feeling really good. You. And I'm like really excited to be back in this space with you. And I'm really excited for the season that we have ahead of us. And like, we've gone in so many directions with this podcast, and last season felt like a really epic, groundbreaking, historical season of interviews. And which was awesome. Like I really loved all the interviews we did. I'm really proud of what we created there, but I'm also really excited to just like kick it with you and get to talk with you about all these things and see what I think over the course of this season, people are going to be astounded by all the parallels and divergences of love that we know and have experienced in life, So I'm really excited.
I was thinking about this too. I'm so excited. And I was thinking about how full circle this moment is for us to be doing a season about love specifically, because for a long time, you and I were like, we're doing our work, we're coming back together and being like, exchange of lessons, exchange of learnings, exchange of wisdom. And then we're going back out into the world and doing our work in separate locations. But one of the first projects that you and I conceived of doing together was a book project on radical love, where we were going to be exploring love as we learned it through our parentage and through our family and all those things. So there's something that to me seems, even though we never actually made that book, it's like we're going to make it right now.
Exactly. Exactly. I really feel that. I feel like there's something about this that feels fated. So I'm really excited. And I have a question, which is, should we tell people about our Patreon stuff now?
Yeah, why not? Let's do a little shameless self-promotion.
Yeah. Well, we're learning about all this Patreon stuff, but so we have a Patreon. It's really sweet. We really appreciate all the people who are already members of it. And we find like all those people were just operating on faith. Basically, they're just like, I love y'all. Here's something without anything in return. And finally we got it together. And now we have stuff for them, for y'all. So we're inviting people to become patrons of us, become patrons of this season. It really supports us to cover the cost of what we're doing. Yeah. And that invitation now comes with beautiful merch. We have a t-shirt, we have a tote bag, we have a mug, we have a poster, And we have a gift certificate to Fat in the Moon discount
Right.
code.
Right.
Who they make the best smelling, yummy, natural, delightful bath and body things.
Right. And we have a lot of different like artists involved in the design of our merch. So the mug is a design that we commissioned from an artist named Hannah Chalou. And the t-shirt and the tote bag design came from Bianca Ibarculea, who also designed the syllabus that was created by an academic based on our work a few years ago. If people remember that beautiful syllabus that went out that was like based on the show. And then of course we have the poster that was designed by Adrienne Maree Brown.
I drew it.
Yeah. So it's like, for those of you who are already patrons, if you haven't had a chance to go over and like make sure that you're signed up in a tier where you're actually going to receive merch, that's an important step to take. Okay. But if you are not a patron, now is a good time to go over there, check it out and pick a level that you can sign up at. And then any level that you sign up on, you get access to this other special thing that we started doing this year called Ask Us Anything episodes, where we field a bunch of questions from our patrons. And then we record a special session, just the two of us answering those questions, and then drop it just to patrons. So there's also like patron only content that is going to be coming out throughout the year. Some of it is those Ask Us Anythings. We'll probably also drop some special event content to patrons only. So yeah, it's like, it's new for us to be doing this. And we're also so excited to be at a point in the life of the show where we actually have capacity and stability enough to be able to do this. So that is great.
We grown. Okay. We grown. We making it on our own. Okay. Yeah. So we have a new segment. Yeah. And I think like, if I was to describe this, the sound of this segment, it would be like the flume of like that.
Yes.
How would you describe it?
I would describe it with these sounds.
Wow. Great. So yeah. So we last seasons, we've given you the flume of rage, and we really spent some time digging deep into what was enraging to us. And there's
plumbing
so much,
the depths of our anger.
We plumbed it. But now with this season, because our focus is really about love, we wanted to give ourselves room for awe, to really notice that even in spite of everything out there that is hard and difficult and sad and, despairing and grief filled, there are still these moments of awe. There are still these moments of wonder and joy and pleasure. And we wanted a chance to uplift those and share those, and just share what's really inspiring and exciting us right now. So this is going to be our first flume of awe.
The flume of awe. So going forward, we'll be asking each other, what is something that is giving you joy, pleasure, and or other feelings of awe? And Adrienne, do you want to go first with your flume of awe?
In general, folks know that I have a soft place, a joyful place in my heart for direct action. Like I just feel like it moves me every time I see humans willing to put their time, energy, and bodies in front of what they care about. Right. And just like, this is something that really matters to me. And recently, a ton of scientists around the world took a direct action where they went out of their buildings, locked themselves to their buildings, locked themselves to the front doors to lock down the places where they were working in order to make a statement about the level of climate crisis we're in. Wow. And the climate crisis is a place of despair for me, but all the actions I see humans taking, humans who may or not see themselves as warriors in this struggle, but like something has moved them to this point. So the first video that I saw was this NASA scientist who was doing it. He had chained himself to the front of his building, and he was crying as he took this action. Like it was so tied into his heart. And what I felt when I was watching it was that awe, that I'm like, I don't know this person. I don't know any of these people, but the feeling I have in my heart for this world, they have that feeling in their hearts. Yeah. And, I felt like as an earthling, I could feel the way the earth receives the love of that action.
And it's gotta stop. We're gonna lose everything. And we're not joking. We're not lying. We're not exaggerating. This is so bad, everyone, that we're willing to take this risk, and more scientists and more people are gonna start joining us. This is for all of the kids of the world, all of the young people, all of the future people. This is so much bigger than any of us.
It's the same energy I felt during Standing Rock. It's the energy I feel about the activists who are holding down the mountains in Hawaii. I feel this way where I'm just like, oh, like there's so many of us still loving and fighting for this place. And that fills me with awe.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was happening because I'm like offline.
So much other stuff happened that day. And that's how things go these days, right? It's like, it's hard to bring enough attention. It's like, oh, wait, there was a random shooter. This is that. And that, you know, it's like, but also this happened and it was meaningful. And so I want to know about for you, what is something for you that's giving you joy, pleasure,
so
feelings of awe?
This is something that's giving me a feeling of awe and has to do with how we experience awe. So this is something that my therapist literally just told me today, that when we hold our breath, we can temporarily see and hear better.
What?
And that applies to both the experience of being startled and afraid, like your body then can temporarily see and hear better so that you can like locate yourself and locate the thing that has startled you and figure out, like, temporarily your senses are heightened so that you can figure out whether you're in danger. But it also relates to experiencing awe. So if you see something that is like beautiful, then your senses briefly will heighten so you can take in more of the information of that awesomeness.
That's good design.
How fucking cool is that?
Pretty fucking cool. Like, that's amazing. I love stuff like that. I just love stuff like that.
Way to go, human body. And I love also, I love the fact that like the same function serves both sensations.
Are you terrified?
Are you terrified?
Is it wonder?
You
need to see it.
Better hear it. You need to hear this, girl. You need to hear this.
Wow, that's incredible. I love it. It feels tied into the fact that when you lose a sense, another one heightens too. Like there's just these ways of balance in the body. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, so cool. Thank you, therapist.
And thank you everyone for coming to our Flume of Awe.
So
well, you know, there's one other thing I think I was going to say in my check-in, and I may have said it before, but I feel like I'm going to say it every single episode, which is also, I was commissioned for a musical, and that gives me feelings of awe. It's also my check-in.
I was commissioned for a musical. It's really like, you know, there's moments in your life when you're like, I'm on the threshold of something that feels like it's really big for me. It feels like it's really like opening my heart to new possibilities. And it's also the unknown. And I'm really geeking out about it because I'm like, I don't know how to do this at all. Like, it's so thrilling. About to learn.
I'm about to learn. And I have a lot of people in my life who do have insight. And
now you also have the guidebook of the TV show, High School Musical, the series.
Well, we're going to get to that because that is my top cultural joy.
Okay.
Yes. No, but we're going to dive deep. Yes.
Okay. No, we gonna dive deep.
So
I'm so excited for you.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you. And I'm so excited for, like, of course, the supports that you're going to call in around how this is done. And also I'm so excited for the way you're going to do it.
Yeah. Cause I'm just like, even calling it a musical it's bending the reality of what it is. Cause I'm like, it's like a musical ritual immersive experience.
Of course.
Like, it's, you know, it's basically the dream in my head of what humans are doing whenever we're together. So I'm really excited. But it fills me with awe. So
yes.
So here we are, sister.
Can I introduce the primary?
I really need you to bring the theme in.
Here's what the theme is. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. What is love? That's the theme of our conversation today. What is love?
What is love? What is love?
Why does it hurt so bad? And why is it so necessary?
Oh, I love this. Well, and I want to know, like, for you, like when you walk around in the world and you love things, like what is love to you? How do you define it?
Yeah. And I was actually just talking with my Aikido teacher about this a few months ago.
Galen.
Because I was like describing how the feeling that I feel when I'm on the mat and my energetic field meets the energetic field of another person that I'm practicing with, then like the only thing that's happening is like, I mean, physically, the only thing that's happening is like the two of us are trying to work out the technique together.
That's right.
But in the moment of our energetic fields meeting, there is something that's so profound and indescribable. And to me, it often feels like love, or it feels like the thing that I would say is like that experienced, like aliveness sense that you have when you're in someone else's presence. And it's been interesting to experience it like in my dojo as with a bunch of people who, most of whom I only know in that context. Right.
That's right.
And in some ways it like makes whatever feelings I'm having towards other people in the room, it's even more precise because of the fact that I have only the dojo as the context for the relationship.
Yeah.
And so there's less and less and less that I can project onto the people, because it's just like, I'm a body, you're a body, we're figuring this out together. But if I can kind of extrapolate that experience as like there's like this then if I take it closer to home, that I'm like thinking about last night, you know, sitting on the couch with Maree and watching an episode of High School Musical, the series, and then just like looking over at Maree, and Maree looks over at me, and we just look at each other and smile. And then and Maree takes my hand, and then we just turn back to the screen.
Yeah.
And there's something in that like exchange of affection that requires absolutely nothing verbal.
Yes.
For us to both be deeply understanding that the thing that we're feeling is love for one another.
Yes.
You know, I think that one of the things that makes love so unique is how difficult to verbalize it is, you know, and how most of the ways that we experience or know that we love someone are things that, you know, it's like why most poetry and song is about love, because we're always struggling to find the words to describe what the feeling is.
That's right.
Yeah. What about you? Like, how do you like try to say what love is?
So there's, you know, in the reading of All About Love from Bell Hooks, she has this definition that I fell in love with, which is an echo of the work of Erich Fromm. And it's defining love as the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. And when I think of love as the action, right, rather than like a state of being or of that you can fall into, it's like the act of loving is really that, like, I'm extending towards your spiritual growth and I'm nurturing my own, and all of that's happening concurrently. So mostly that, but then also I think about my nibblings. I think about when I got to hold you as a little baby, you know, where I wasn't thinking about growth. I didn't have a framework, and babies don't have a framework of growth. And I love that you brought up sitting on the couch with Maree, because, you know, last week I was sitting on the couch surrounded by all three of your children, you know, and they needed to be in touch with me. So like Finn was like reaching over Maree to have a hand on my shoulder. Siobhan had her feet tucked under my leg, and Maree was like tucked up under my arm. And we just had these moments of just like sitting there smiling, beaming at each other. And I know that from me, there's that pouring of spiritual growth energy, but from them, there's just like, I love being in your presence. This is the best thing, you know? And I never doubt that when I'm with them, that they're just like, this is just great. Like just being with you. And when I
Mhm.
think about every experience I've had of love in my life, whether it's parental, familial, friend, communal, you know, all of that, it always has that essence to it. That's just like, this is what life is about, being here with you. This is,
Mhm.
this is it. And,
Essence.
you know, those feelings sustain through kind of the things that are really, really difficult when it's like life is hard, but because we have this love, it comes up under what's hard and makes it possible to keep moving forward. Right.
Mhm.
Um, and I want to offer two quotes from Bell Hooks's book also. So, to love well is the task in all meaningful relationships, not just romantic bonds,
Mhm.
right? So I love this love as an action. Love is
Yeah.
something that we are trying to get great at. And then to tie it into why we, as the host of How to Survive the End of the World, would talk about love for an entire season, I want to offer this quote from Bell Hooks, which is, "Only love can heal the wounds of the past. However, the intensity of our woundedness often leads to a closing of the heart, making it impossible for us to give or receive the love that is given to us."
Mm.
So when I think about how we're in a situation where we even need to survive, it's because there are these deep wounds, wounds that have come between us as a species, wounds that have become systemic, wounds that have become structural, wounds that are keeping us from a sense of deep belonging to
Right.
each other, right? Keeping us from being able to feel ourselves intact in relationship with others.
Mm.
And if only love can heal the wounds from the past, then we have to find ways to make it possible to open our hearts again
Yes.
and let that in. And you know, there's that Japanese practice of healing things with gold.
I have a ceramicist who is doing that for me right now with a
Yes.
pot.
Right. So
kintsugi.
Kintsugi. So my friend Ian in Detroit did that for me with a few items last year.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking like, oh, when I say healing, this is a little bit of what I mean. It's
Yes.
like there's some gold in the universe and I'm not the gold, but I will help it find its way into these gaps, you know? And I want to think about that with this season, that part of what we're doing is figuring out like, where are the wounds that we're trying
Mm.
to survive and how can love be the medicine?
Yeah. I was just trying to find, there's this beautiful quote from Resmaa Menakem that I was trying to find about the thing that you were just describing, how like that unhealed wound over time becomes like a personality in someone.
Yes.
And then over time becomes culture, right?
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Like the things that we think of as culture often are like rooted in like generations old unhealed wounds.
Exactly.
And
people really think of themselves as like broken.
Right. And they think of their communities and cultures as broken.
Yeah.
But we also know, I mean, well, I think we believe, you and I believe, and many of us believe that we have the medicine for those wounds. But it's like, what is the thing that makes it medicine? It's that it's choosing to apply it.
That's right.
Right. It's choosing to actually use it as medicine rather than just experience it or expect that it's going to be experienced.
Yes. And that's part of why I love this definition that Bell Hooks, you know, uplifted, because it's like, okay, so we need to extend that, right? We need to find a way to open, soften, and be generous in this moment. That's actually the most important thing. We've been given a narrative of scarcity that keeps us divided from each other and wounding each other and staying in those places where we're like, I don't even think I can love, or I don't even know how to be a different way. And it's like, actually, there's a will that we can cultivate to extend ourselves towards nurturing our highest selves, towards nurturing our loving selves, you know, as we are, and nurturing each other. And I think this is a time where we need to be moving from scarcity to generosity, and where we need to be moving from the idea of being individuals to the idea of being one, right? One whole being.
Right.
Michaela Harrison has been doing this whale whispering work. And the main message she's gathered from the whales is we are one, right? Which I find so loving, because it's like, oh, like when I offer love to anything else, I'm offering love back to myself as well. Like it's a total act, you know, like there's not even inward outward. It's just like, it's all so interconnected.
Yeah.
And that like thrills me.
I mean, not to make it all about science, but the science backs that one up. You know what I mean? Like, neuroscience backs it up. Physical science backs it up, that like the more that we experience and enact love, the more that we are experiencing it internally, you know? That's so right. It's one of those places where all of the ways that we know things align around this one.
That's right. That's right. So I thought we could, you know, we've mapped out a season, and what we cover may or may not fall as neatly as this map, you know, like we may get lost along the way. There may be moments where we're like, wait, we've got to climb up to that ledge and see what's up there. So it's like a suggestive map through an adventurous territory, but we wanted to share with you all some of the things we're imagining exploring over the course of this season that we're excited to get into. And I thought we could just sort of take turns going back and forth with what we have so far as ideas. So one thing we really want to explore is what it means to love ourselves as we are, right? And I think of my teacher, Spenta Kandawala, you know, she was the first person to say to me, like, nothing to fix, right? There's nothing to fix with you. There's nothing that is like fundamentally broken in you. It's just, how can you sort of be with everything that has shaped you to be as you are? And then from that place, act towards yourself, you know, like where do you want to go? So there's a self-acceptance that is at the heart of this kind of love. It's like, I am who I am, and I can't be ashamed of the things that shaped me to be who I am. That's the particular basket of life that I was given to work with, right? If that's the show, what's that show? Chopped. Right? It's like, here's your random
ingredients that include a package of ham and a bottle of Prosecco.
Exactly. Right. And so Fruity Pebbles to make a dessert. Right. So it's kind of like life is like you're chopped, right? It's just sort of like you were given, you know, excellent parenting or less excellent parenting, poverty, wealth. You were given a race. You were given all these cultural artifacts, or none of them. You were given song, spirit, practice. You were given trauma. You were given privilege. You were given these things. And here you go. And how are you going from this to make the beautiful meal of your life? How are you going to make something not just edible? Okay. How are you going to make something delicious and incredible? And part of that is our bodies. Part of that is our minds. Part of that is our spirits. So we're both now getting into those ages where it's like, oh, the body really starts to change, and you can think of it as deterioration. I'm really not feeling it that way. I'm just sort of like, oh, my body is changing, and I have to be much more mindful to shape those changes and partner with my body and love my body as, you know, like, I'm like, we're not going backwards, right? This body that is 43 will never be 23 again. This body is 43. And what is the most loving way I can be 43? Right. And for me, you know,
and what do I want 63 to look like?
What do I want 63 to look like? You know, I'd like to get to 83, 103, 203. So, you know, how are we? Yeah. You know, just, it's me. Right. So I really want to talk. I'm like, I'm laying here frozen, but I'm healthy as fuck.
But I'm healthy.
But I want us to talk when we get there about the health practices we're engaging in and what has shifted with those. I also want us to talk there about mental health and what it means to like stop battling the mind and really be like, okay, this is what my mind does. And how do I be with that? How can I love that? So that's going to be one episode that we're going to dive into.
Beautiful. Yep. It's going to be fucking awesome. Might end up being more than one episode. Let's be real.
I was just thinking that. I was like, it'll be at least one.
We also want to do, again, at least one, if not more episodes on divine love. And we are really interested in both how we experience the sacred and also what some of our sacred texts have to say about love. Because, I mean, one of the things that I love about various sacred traditions is that a lot of the religious and spiritual traditions that we've inherited have a lot to say about how love is experienced in different forms of love and how we can cultivate different forms of love in our lives, and how we can experience divine love versus other types of love. So we're going to have some really interesting ground to explore there. And hopefully we'll also be able to get a little bit into how some of our religious and spiritual spaces that we inhabit, like churches, synagogues, mosques, covens, all of the different ways that we talk about, like, what are the spiritual space, what are the spaces that we claim for our practice, how we can cultivate love in those spaces, but also how some of those spaces can confuse our experiences of love or suppress our experiences of love or judge them. So we'll be getting into some interesting territory, both I think leveraging our religious and spiritual traditions as a way of understanding love and thinking about how love has been understood historically and how it's understood now, because even how we understand romantic love, for instance, has changed a lot in the last century. But also thinking about how having a spiritual life can really shape how open or not open to love we are.
I love that. Yeah. So then we want to get into falling in love, right? One of my
favorite things.
One of my very favorite things. We love to fall in love here. And I want us to talk both about falling in love in the romantic context, but also like that falling in love with a new friend, falling in love with a new comrade, like falling in love, that act of being like, holy wow. So you just out here existing and I didn't even know. And now like, right. Or falling in love with someone where you're like, I've known you for I didn't even
7 lifetimes.
Exactly.
Oh, you mean like I knew you? Like I'm
like, no, I knew you. And then something shifted. Right. And I especially want to talk, because we're grown folks business over here, that, the first time you fall in love, for many people when we're really young, teenagers, maybe early 20s, that first big falling in love experience is one thing. But after your first big heartbreak, the continued possibility of falling in love, the continued practice of falling in love, it changes. And I want us to really talk about that and what it means to, I think more and more over time, learn to be yourself while in the practice of falling in love. Right. So we're going to spend some time there, and I'd love to have some science in that. Like, what is the science of falling in love? What's happening in the body? What's happening to the brain?
Oh yeah.
What's the chemical reaction? What's happening? So
we're going to talk to science. We're going to talk to science
about a little bit of science in there.
And then we're going to talk about sustaining love. And we're going to get into a little bit of some, toolboxes, like a toolbox approach to what we have found in our lives as like ways that you can actually sustain love in your life. And that doesn't just mean sustaining romantic love, but sustaining the experience of love in spite of hardship or in relationship to hardship. So we're going to talk about the role of therapy. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about the role of friends. And I would love for us to, again, we'll see how many episodes we've got in us, but I would love to have a whole episode just about like friendship love, because it's like this whole own type of love. But we're going to talk about boundaries. We're going to talk about adapting and transforming in relationship with others, and how, like, what are the conditions that make it possible to change and grow together? And what are the conditions that make it really hard? We're going to talk about some of the lessons that we've learned from like the work that we've been doing, trying to figure out how to get the love that we want in our lives, and how to call in the kind of love that we want to be experiencing and practicing. And also how to be, in how to be able to like be in the present with the people who like, and loving the people who are actually here in our lives, rather than staying out in some fantasy of like who we're supposed to be with or who we're supposed to be surrounded by.
That's right. And, I imagine that like many other people, this is a really interesting transition moment of like, how do we let go of what we've been given as the meta narrative of what sustaining love means, which is just like, take it. You just, no matter what, you just
escalate it,
constantly be escalating while
it.
constantly be staying, while constantly be compromising. That's the love practices that I think we grew up, when I look at like a lot of the love that I witnessed growing up, it was like, yeah, you just stick it out. And I think that's changing a lot right now.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, we could have all kinds of formations in order to help love thrive. So there's that. And then, we are parts of movements, and our movements really, I think, are meant to be acts of love for the world, right? It's meant to be, we see a place where there's a wound and we're going to bring love to that. We're going to work collectively to transform this wound into a place of freedom and liberation, which means loving at the collective level. But we can see that we've been really stumbling and falling all over ourselves in this. Like, we're really struggling with, well, how do we love people if we think they made a mistake? How do we love formations that we might politically disagree with? How do we love within our formations when we're really in a battle? And
how do we fight for the freedom of people that we don't like?
How do we love those we don't like? Right. And like, then there's this act, what I call loving corrections. And I really do think I'm about to do a book called Loving Corrections. But how do we call each other up to our highest values in movement spaces and break the cycle of like, how do I punish you and push you down as far as I can into the mud? It's like, no, like, how do I love you and love us and let you love me towards our highest recognition and realization of what we can be? And I think that's what movement's supposed to be. But I also think we'll probably spend some time there in like boundaries, like how do we practice love in movements and still have integrity? And at this point, I'm calling it the Hemphill method and not just the quote of Prentice Hemphill. The Hemphill method is like, how do you practice boundaries that help you set the distance at which you can love others and yourself simultaneously. So Prentice Hemphill, the Black Buddha of our times, is offering so much wisdom around boundaries, but we're going to probably spend some time there because I think in our movements, our inability to set boundaries means that often by the time we are trying to set them, it's in like a crisis mode, and it's like trying to set dynamite and create a moat and like all kinds of stuff that's like, oof. Love would not act that way. So
literal dynamite.
Yeah. Related. Tell us about the next one, because I think it's very related.
It is very related. So what does it look like to do work that we love? How do we find the work that we love? And then how do we give ourselves permission to do exactly the work that we love,
and that loves us. Yeah.
And that loves us. And, you and I have both been on quite the journey in our lives as adults around coming to understand what it is that we actually love to do, and then positioning ourselves to be able to do that work.
Yep. Hashtag blessed.
And, having to navigate some of that discernment. I know that both of us have done around like, well, what are the things that I'm called to do? What are the things that I'm really good at doing? What are the things that I was trained to do versus what are the things that I actually love to spend my energy on, even if I'm neither good at them nor trained to do them. Exactly. So we're going to talk about that, like about the journey towards like having a feeling of, I love what I do.
That's right. Which, I think is so core to feeling like you love your life, right? That I'm like, if you spend your life doing things you don't love, it's really hard to love that life. So
for real.
So then, every single episode, we spend a little time in pop culture, top culture, cultural space, but we also wanted to spend some time in like, how do we build a culture that we love? What are the things in our culture currently that we love and maybe why? So I want to do, in that space, some deep dives into like, what are these things that capture our collective cultural attention, and why do they capture that attention? And how does that relate to our liberation path? Because I think a lot of times It's places where we see people taking big risks. It's places where we see people loving themselves out loud. I'm like, we live in the age of Lizzo. We live in the age of Star Trek Discovery. We live in the age of things that are like, wow, like this feels like such a love offering, so I want us
we live in the age of Bridgerton.
Oh, we're going to talk about that, right?
Yeah,
okay.
It's my top culture.
I was like, Bridgerton. So we're going to spend some time on the culture that we love.
We're also going to spend some time on family and how we experience love within the context of family or don't. We're going to talk about family shaping as, the earliest locations in which we come to understand for what love means, or how we're shaped to understand what love is and what love looks like. And some of the, some of us learn really healthy shapes, and a lot of us learn really maladaptive shapes for what love is supposed to do for us and how we're supposed to experience love. And I think a lot of what we are going to focus on is, what does it look like to practice loving our families as adults? And we have developed some practices with our immediate family, our group as sisters, and our immediate family, including our parents, that have helped us stay in loving relationship with each other. And so we're going to be talking about some of those practices in depth. And also what we've heard from other families who've learned, like, how do you love each other as adults? How do you continue choosing each other as adults, especially once you've reached a point where you no longer necessarily have to choose each other?
That's right. I'm really, I think that's going to be one of my favorite places, because I'm both so overjoyed by what we're practicing right now as a family, like how it feels to be in our family right now feels like the result of a lot of intentional choices to extend love and extend towards each other's nurtured spiritual growth, so I'm like, we're rocking it. And then finally, although it might not be the final thing, but finally, as a topic we want to explore, is loving at the level of species. So, which to me includes, like, how do we think as a species, right? Of like, how are we nurturing the whole? How are we nurturing each other and nurturing the planet that is our home, right? As a species, it's like falling in love with this place and thinking of it as one place to protect feels so important. How do we do that? How do we let go of all the borders and territorial thinking that keeps us from understanding that we are one species, one being, one interconnected body? And in this, I think we also have to talk about what it means to love the future, right? Like, not just to have ambitions for our own individual futures, but to actually have a sense of, like, I feel in love with the possibility of the future. I see something other than just a dystopian slog of horrific things. I see something actually really beautiful out there ahead of us. And I want to,
and to love future generations enough to fight for a future that they deserve to live in.
And, I think it's something that I hear so often in people who become parents, where it's like, oh, everything has changed. Now I understand, and I can love out ahead of me beyond my lifetime in a different way. I know that as an auntie, that's something that happened for me, as I was just like, it's not theoretical anymore. It's these people. And I really want people, them, and the people that they're going to bear, and, and so on. But I think this is where, we will be able to tie back into Indigenous wisdom of thinking in terms of 7 generations, which I think is, to me, the most loving worldview that I've ever really come across. It's like, oh, like, I'm loving myself in this vast sense of what it is to be of a time, place, and being. So that is what we're thinking of so far for our season. We hope it excites you as much as it excites us to look ahead at these conversations. And I want to say to our readers, if there's something we're missing, if there's something you're like,
listeners,
what did I say?
Readers.
Well, I am also a writer. To our listeners, that if there's something that you're like, I'd love to hear y'all touch on this, or, this might tie into one of the topics you've already explored, or this might be something different. I will say, there might be something on loving animals. There might be some other kinds of love out there. Let us know if there's something that you're like, hey. All right.
Actually, let me correct myself. We have both listeners and readers because we have transcripts, and now we have people who primarily consume the show by reading it. So let me not invisibilize all of the people who aren't actually listening to the show, but are taking it in.
Good correction, sister. So, I'm proud of you.
Yeah. I'm getting better and better at like correcting myself in real time.
Yeah. We're all learning. So to our listeners and our readers, we want to hear from you about what if there's any pockets of love that we have missed. So
yes.
And I love you, sister. I want to tell you that like, you really have been one of my favorite co-scholars in this work of figuring out what love looks like and what it means to be in love, what it means to do the work of love, what it means to choose ourselves. To like, I think that we share this practice of like being very skilled at pouring our love out into a lot of other containers and kind of being a little late blooming when it comes to like pouring that love back into the containers of ourselves.
Oh, yes.
But I'm so astounded by how I've seen you pouring the love into the container of yourself. And I'm really grateful to get to be in these conversations with you.
Same. We have certainly been on the journey together all these years and always learning the lessons, if not at the same time, then letting each other know that, hey, I learned this lesson and this lesson's coming for you too, girl.
Oh yeah. Oh, we do have those. I think someday the text messages are going to be.
Yeah, that happens for us too. I think where it's like, and I think that that's also what a loving relationship can do, right? Is like you trust each other enough to know when someone else has like the wisdom or the medicine for you that you're going to need, but maybe you don't need it yet, you know? And I think that we've certainly taken turns playing that role in each other's lives. So
it really feels like there's an equality of love, wisdom amongst us.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great season.
Yeah, it's going to be a great season. So let's wrap up this episode with some pop cultural joy. And do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
I want to worship at the church of Shonda Rhimes. He is just a fucking genius. So for anyone who hasn't seen Bridgerton season 2, I don't know who you are or what rock you live under.
Why
have you not seen it? I was concerned. I was concerned about Bridgerton season 2 when I realized that Regé-Jean was not going to
Renee.
Be who you call Renee, but we found out is actually called Regé-Jean. When I found out that he was nowhere in sight of this season, I was like, okay, well, what is happening without his
What
butt?
is sex?
Where's the sex going to be?
I don't understand.
And I have to say what they skimped on in actual sex seasons this season, they more than made up for with Almost Kisses.
Oh my God, those almost kisses.
Wow. The amount of almost kissing that happens over the course of. I
didn't even know you could stand that close to someone that long.
Found myself just laughing and like waving my hand in my own face and just like, I was delightful. It's a delightful season.
It really is.
There's a few things that you're like, but like, why is Eloise not gay? Doesn't make sense. She should be gay. She's obviously gay, but why is she not like, why is there not like a main gay character? It doesn't make sense.
Yes. Especially given that the main character is gay.
The main character actor is gay in real life. Exactly. It's just like, what's going on? Anyway,
I was like, no wonder he's just breathing at her.
Exactly. He's got amazing chemistry with everyone, apparently.
Oh my God.
So anyway, there's a few things that I was like not feeling, you know, like I was one of the nights that I was watching the season was when my bestie was in town and we had this moment where we were watching a few episodes together and she looked at me and she's like, yeah, like, I can't differentiate between the 3 brothers in the Bridgerton family. Like I can't tell them apart. And I was like, you're right. They have all the same personality basically.
It's very,
there's some things
like, why
that
isn't Penelope like being pursued? Like I want to see a fat love story. On
Exactly. So anyway, there's things that I'm hoping for in season 3, but I will say overall season 2 knocked it out of the park. Super fan of all the breathing and the like trauma response of the bee sting moment. I loved that. I was like, yes, bringing in all of it. I was a fan.
That part was so good.
Yeah. Lots of great
and I
stuff happening right now. And that was one of it.
I want to also uplift. So I've been rewatching Scandal, and I was really appreciating both. Like, I've been rewatching Scandal. I've been going back and catching up on Grey's Anatomy, and then watching Bridgerton. I'm like, Shonda really commits to the fantastical. Like, in each of her shows, there's something that is really just like the fantastical. So in Scandal, I'm like, I have to keep reminding myself, like, somehow you have me watching raptly about the hijinks of these Republicans. And, the ultimate like main outcome of this is like, these are bad people. Like, and every season really is just like, even though it's interesting, and even though you might want to root for some of them, like fundamentally, these are like, they're bad. But there's this fantastical thing, which is like, there's a love story and they're good,
Right. And they're the white hats.
They're white hats. Right. And I'm like, oh, but that
they're
white
somehow
hat
like really liberal. And
I'm
heroes.
like, you literally have like bloody fingerprints all over your white hat now. But anyway, so with Bridgerton too, I feel like she's really doubling down on the fantastical, like, this is a diverse space that will never, ever, ever talk about race. Like, we will not do
never
it,
does,
right?
Is not a part of
it's
the
not
story.
We will talk, there will be scandal that is related to like who is marrying who, but it will never have anything to do with race. It's only class. That's the only thing here.
Yeah.
And it just makes me think like, I just hope that all the people in movement who are always like, it's only class, are just like watching this and just enjoying it. Right. I'm like, this is what it looks like if you try to hold the analysis that it's only class. You just see the race anyway, and you're just supposed to keep pretending. So enjoy. So then
what's your top culture, girl?
So mine is, and we mentioned it a few times in this, and I want to thank you because I was minding my business in life. And, as I may have mentioned, I was commissioned for a musical. So I've really been immersing myself in the realm of musical projects and going back and watching some of my favorites. And I had a group thread going, and Autumn just dropped into it, and really out of nowhere, really out of nowhere was just like, by the way, does everyone know about High School Musical, the series? And I didn't know about it. And I then immediately got to come visit you and get the, I would say the fast track education exposure first to High School Musical and what was happening with Zac Efron and Vanessa Hudgens and the like awkward, wonderful teenage ridiculousness of the original High School Musical story.
Which you and I both, we missed that somehow.
We missed it
I don't
completely.
know how.
Like, I think it came in the moment right
inundated
after.
With this.
Yeah. So like, I think it was like both of us had it's like I was already graduating from college and I think you were going into college.
Right. We were too old for it.
I literally am not paying attention. I don't remember anything that was on TV the whole time I was in college. Like I don't.
Right.
So I think that was it. I was too old for it.
It's like we knew that it was happening, but we were not.
I didn't even.
We
know
had
that
no
it was
exposure
happening.
to it.
Like I literally remember seeing Zac Efron and being like, "Who is that? Why is he famous? I don't understand." Right?
Exactly.
And part of what you said was Zac Efron is actually a triple threat. Did you know? And I'm like, I didn't know. I still don't understand why he's famous.
What you're talking about.
So then I sat down with your children and we watched High School Musical,
the original musical.
I was totally like, oh, this is just so over the top and goofy and corny and delightful.
The basketball players who are dancing with basketballs.
It's wonderful. And there's get your head in like the game. The thing I love about Zac Efron particularly is it's like and I think that Glee has also played in this category. It's like people who are like, I'm supposed to be cool, but I want to do a musical. But the whole framework of it is like, it's not possible to really be cool at that age, right? So no one actually is, but everyone's doing their performances and it just makes it all so plain. And then like the sticky, sweet way that Vanessa Hudgens and Zac Efron look at each other and look period. Like I'm like, who walks around with cheeky smiles like this?
So cute.
Anyway, it's just so chipmunky and cute and adorable. And then the beautiful thing is the High School Musical, the series is incredible. A series that is set. It's still all fictional, but it's set at the high school where the musical was filmed. And with a sneaky teacher who has who realizes that the musical has never been put on at that high school. Hijinks ensue.
Auditions are after school.
I've seen the original movie 37 times, and the first 15 minutes of both sequels.
It would be insane to think I might actually have a shot at playing Gabriella.
Now, what I'm still so deeply in love with is we don't ever know what the musical is that they were putting on. There's never like a, here's the musical. It's like someone keeps writing songs that seem to be sort of, is there a storyline? We don't know, right? We don't know this. It's not like we're putting on Romeo and Juliet or we're doing this or whatever. It's not like that.
Wait, you mean in the series?
In the series, it's like
in the series
they're putting on
High School
Musical, but High School Musical was them putting on a musical.
Oh, right. And
right?
we never know what that,
we never know what that
That's
musical
true.
is, right? But then just songs keep getting written. And then Olivia Rodrigo.
Because in High School Musical, everything is leading up to the audition.
Everything leads, yes, the peak of it is this audition moment, a callback. Okay.
Right.
So, and then I also have to say, so for me, the standouts are Zac Efron and then Olivia Rodrigo, who is in the series.
Before she became super famous.
Before she became super famous. So, and I love
Disney Channel.
Driver's License, that song. So I was like, oh, so happy to go back and be like, oh, you come from somewhere. And then I was like, this song didn't just drop miraculously out of the sky. And then what's her best friend's name?
Her best friend in the show, her best friend's name is Courtney. I don't know the actress's name.
Whoever plays Courtney, I need to know what's happening with her career because she's amazing. And
I'm going to look her name up right now.
What felt so comforting to me. So she's this like bombastic Black queen who's giving excellent advice and has awesome, like happy style. And what made me so happy was my neighborings kept being like, she's giving major Adrienne vibes. And I was just like, I see it too.
It's
I feel
so
it
perfect.
too.
The actress's name is Dara Renee.
Okay. Dara Renee, where are you? What are you doing? Like, let us know so that we can like watch it, listen to your music.
Exactly.
She's incredible. She needs to have her whole thing.
She needs to have an album out.
So that's the like real sweet, lighthearted place that I've spent my I'm between Scandal. So it's like the torture seasons of Scandal and High School Musical, the musical series.
It's so good. I have
range.
to say this series is so good. And it's truly one I can recommend to like, if you love musicals, you'll love it.
Yes.
Also, if you love mockumentaries, you'll love it because It's got that like confessional element where they're talking directly to the camera about what's happening around them. So it has that sort of office feel. Yeah. And if you're like into just like awkwardness, there's so much of it in the series.
And
so people of all
silliness.
ages can enjoy the show and the music is really fun.
That is our show. That is our first show. We have season 6 open. Okay.
Opened it.
And should we do credits? Do you remember how to do them? Okay.
They're right here. Thanks for listening to our show. They're right here in my Google Doc. We're on Twitter and Instagram at End of the World PC. We're also on Facebook at End of the World Show, even if no one else is.
Should we stop being on Facebook? Okay. You can make a sustaining donation to our show by visiting our page at patreon.com/endoftheworldshow.
Another incredible thing you can do to help our show sustain itself is to write us a review on Apple Podcasts if you are an iPhone person. Thank you.
Or just post about it. How to Survive the End of the World is produced and edited by the incomparable Zach Rosen and transcribed by the sweet, delightful, and talented Jess Pinkham.
And music for today's show comes from Tunde Alaniran and Mother Cyborg.
All right. We love y'all.
We love you.
See you soon.